Hi everyone, Mr. V here. This is a quick video about fossils and the different types of fossils. Remember that fossils are the preserved remains of organisms. In order for an organism to become a fossil, it first has to die and then become buried in layers of sediment, which turn into rock. The hard parts of the organism are preserved. Hard parts are things like bones, teeth, shells, stems, and seeds. Those hard parts are replaced by minerals, while the soft parts, which include tissues, decompose and disappear. In front of me, I have some examples of some real fossils and some artificial ones that I made. Even though some of them are artificial, they still model or replicate how the real fossils of that type are formed. Let me first sort these into the real ones and the fake ones. I'm going to put all the real ones to my right, over to the right of the screen. Move those over. So all these guys over here are real fossils, and the ones over here are objects that I made. The first fossil, or the first example I'm going to talk about, is called a cast. And a cast out of these ones is this one. A cast is a 3D shape formed when the space left behind by parts of an organism's body are filled in. And as you can see, this is a cast of a seashell. What you're looking at is not the seashell itself, but a cast of the hollow space left behind by the shell. This one was formed by pressing a shell into a piece of clay, and then I removed the shell, and that hollow space is called a mold. And you think of a mold as like an imprint or an impression of the shell. Afterwards, I poured some plaster of Paris and water into the hollow space, and that plaster of Paris cured, it hardened, and turned into a solid cast. And real casts of fossils would form in a similar process. Another example of a fossil is called a carbon film, and the carbon film out of these is right here. This is a carbon film of a fish skeleton, and as you can see, it looks like a flat outline of the skeleton in this layer of rock. It's extremely thin. The rest of this material is just the rock layer that it came from. I'll kind of turn it around so you can see it. A carbon film forms when parts of an organism's body or the entire body itself gets compressed or squeezed between layers of sediment, which turn into sedimentary rock. Eventually, all that remains is just an outline of the organism formed by the carbon that made up its body. Carbon is an element that's found in all living things, so animals such as insects and plants can also form carbon films. Another example, and I'm going down the list to the left, is called a trace fossil. And this is an example of a trace fossil here. Trace fossils are left behind by the activities of organisms, but are not formed by parts of the body of that organism. If you're wondering what this thing is, this is actually a piece of fossilized poop or droppings. And in science, it's actually called a coprolite. So this is actually fossilized poop. Other examples of trace fossils, which I don't have here, would include things like footprints and trails, and those would be left behind by the movement of an animal. But again, they're not formed by parts of the animal itself. Another example that I have here, I have multiple examples of this, are called petrified fossils. And the petrified fossils are these three shells here, and also this thing down here. These three are examples of petrified marine animals, ancient shellfish. As you can see, petrified fossils form when the material inside the shells of these animals have been replaced with minerals. And so this no longer really looks like a shell, but it looks more like a rock. Hopefully you can see that. Here's another one here. And the shell, parts of the shell have been completely mineralized. And that process is called permineralization. Now, these two were given to me, so I don't know exactly how old they are or what they are. This one, this tiny one right here, is called an ammonite, which is an extinct marine animal. This one, it's believed to be around 419 and 359 million years old, and that corresponds to a period of ancient time called the Devonian period. So the Earth's past is divided into these periods, these ancient time periods. Another petrified fossil I have here is this. And it's probably hard to see. It looks like nothing, but this is actually a piece of petrified wood. And this was once part of a tree or part of a plant, and those molecules have been replaced with minerals. This particular one is identified, and it's believed to be around 251 to 200 million years old, which corresponds roughly to the Triassic period, which is another ancient time period in Earth's past. Finally, the last type is called preserved fossils, and they are these ones over here. In contrast to these other types of fossils, especially like this is simply like the shape left behind by an organism. Preserved fossils occur when the entire organism becomes encased or trapped in a material such as ice, tar, or resin. These are a couple examples of resin fossils, fake fossils, or objects that I made. And these ones contain gemstones, small gemstones, or little rocks inside, or plant parts. And this one's clear. Kind of see how the thing is trapped inside. This resin was originally a thick, viscous liquid that when you mix it together, there's a chemical reaction that occurs, and it hardens into this solid material. So I actually can't even snap this in half. It's extremely hard. It's almost like a rock. Okay, that pretty much does it. That's a quick overview of the 6 types of fossils: casts, molds. I don't actually have a true example of a mold. Carbon film, traces, petrified fossils, and preserved. Hopefully this video was helpful for you. If you want to know how to use plaster of Paris to make casts, or if you want to learn how to use a resin kit to make resin objects, I can perhaps show you in a future video. And in the meantime, thanks for watching.